All right, the next thing that we need to try to do is integrate this into an environment with a background. And so I have a picture that I think that is a pretty nice one that I want to incorporate. And I've already downloaded it and put it into my project folder. There actually are two photographs, but let's just start with the background first. And I'll go up here to File, Place. Actually, let's make sure I'm putting it in the right place. I want to go underneath the logo, so let's select where it says Backup Logo. Let's see, do we have the backup logo visible? Yeah, we can, yeah, close that, doesn't matter. Anyway, so I'm gonna, right above backup logo, I will go File, and then I will say link, Place Linked. And I'm gonna choose this one called Rock Face, and you can take a look at what it looks like. And it's a vertical picture, but it is a very high resolution image. So you just have to make sure that the width of the resolution of your original is at least as wide, if not wider, than the width of your document here. And I know that mine is a gigantic image, and it's going to work just fine. So anyway, I'm going to do Shift and Option, and I'm going to make it big. Let's see. We're going to, let's get it in here somewhere. But the thing is, I think that I don't like it, you know, just straight on like that. I think that I'm going to also probably need to do some distorting on it. I don't have free transform selected right now, but I know that I kind of want this to sweep around like, you know, kind of like this. So I'll just get it started right here. And because it's a, a linked object, it won't lose its resolution whenever I go to make some changes. So what we can do, first of all, actually, I want to turn on my guides. And let's take a look at this stuff here. And I'm going to go ahead and go to Edit, Transform, and I'm going to distort this. And the reason I turn my guides on is because I think I want this corner to kind of come through this top corner a little bit and intersect like in the center somewhere in here. And I think that like maybe this can come down, this can come up somewhere in there. And then, you know, maybe if I do something like this, then I start to get this feeling, you know, that I'm kind of sweeping in. You can kind of, I don't know if you can see my mouse move, but I'm sort of sweeping in up into this corner, and then we've got a little bit of space out here. Maybe if I pull that in, it gives me a little bit more of a perspective that I could turn and have my logo and have it sitting there. Maybe I don't want the sky showing so much. Something like that possibly, and maybe I can even move this over. It could be something similar to that, and then I can move this so that it's sitting somewhere in this field of grass and coming up. So I could try something like that. Let's see if maybe that would work. Maybe this can come down. And because this is such a high resolution image, me distorting it like this it's not going to be too much of a problem. And I can maybe make it a little bit, let's see how that looks. Let's try that. I'm going to go ahead and commit to that, and we'll see how that fares for me. All right, and I'm going to turn off my guides as well, so I can see better what I've got. And one thing I'm noticing right off the bat is that there's a lot of busyness, because I actually did a pretty decent job of making this rock look very similar to the rock that's inside of the photograph. But one of the things that I'd like to do is I would like to increase the contrast so that some stuff is standing out more. Something else that you should know as well is that this this word, or this logo, Spire logo, will render a little bit differently, and when I add a light source, I can give it a little bit more brightness to make it stand out as well. So I'm not so worried about that right now. One thing that I might want to go back and adjust, though, is this deep vein that I thought might actually look nice. It's very distracting. It's this deep vein in the rock. And so I might need to go back and apply a different postcard, but I won't. Now that you know how to make a postcard, I won't make you watch me do it. Anyway, so I do want to go ahead and for this rock face, I want to add, I want to add an adjustment layer to it. I'm going to put it right up on top of this one. So I'll come down here, and I think what I'll do is curves for right off the bat. I want to get it so that it has a little bit more contrast, and so that gives it a deeper color. And then let's bring up the brightness a little bit up here. So this is a really easy way to give something a bump, is to kind of pull down in curves, pull it down in the low tones so that you make the low tones a little bit deeper. Right, and then in the brighter tones up here in this level, you bring that out, and it gives more contrast. And if you were to pull it up in here, it brings out more midtones. But the midtones, I think, are kind of where we've got some problems, because there's so much uh, value information going on. So I want to give it a little bit more contrast like that. And then the other thing too is that I might want to maybe play with adjusting some of the color as well. And I think I'll do that maybe on top of everything. So if I go up here, I can add an adjustment layer up above. Let's see what we've got. Let me make sure I'm not excluding anything important. We've got, okay, so the mountain is going to be, yeah, it's inside of here. So my base mountain, the 3D object, is actually, it is inside of my logo. So I can put all of this on top of the logo, I guess. The thing that I'm looking to do is an adjustment layer. I think I want to play around with the color balance a little bit. So let's pop this up a little bit so that the mid-tone reds are a little bit deeper. I'll maybe bump the green up a little bit so that this is a little more verdant feeling, and I don't know, maybe pull some of the yellow down just so that in the mid-tones. And because we've got a lot of yellow. And then for highlights, let's pull these things, maybe not quite that much. Let's pull this though a little bit. Yeah, I think that we need to add a little bit more magenta in the highlights so that it has a little bit more of a brightness, and then maybe a little bit more yellow as well somewhere in here. And then let's do the shadows, and we might not need to mess with these too much. A lot of times with shadows, like I'll add a lot of red, because shadows, if you add red, a lot of times it'll make it a little bit deeper. But I don't want to add too much, because here's kind of the trick whenever you're doing color, is that you do something really dramatic in one direction, and it really helps you feel sort of what's happening and which way you want to go. And so, like, I know I do want to add red. I don't want to add that much red, right? So I start to bring it down until I'm comfortable. And I think maybe the green and magenta, those maybe are okay. And I also can bring in the blue so that it doesn't have such a hot feeling, but it's just enough to also deepen that contrast as well. Okay, and so I think that that's a pretty good color. And then it's also affecting the logo because it is on top of everything, right? All right, and so the next thing that I would like to do is let's go ahead and position this spire logo. So I'm going to go to our logo, and let's open this up and find the correct thing here. So we've got our base mountain, and this is where we actually do want to actually, before I do any of that, let's turn on our Instagram sizes. And here's where it's kind of really handy. You might have up until this point thought, why do I need to do this, right? Well, this is where it kind of really does help you out if you want to make sure that you've got certain fields of view pretty visible. So let's turn this up so that we can see a lot better of the things that might get cut off. And that might help a little bit. Okay, so let's go back down here and let's grab our mountain or our logo. And remember, if you want to move the scene, then you grab this current view camera and you can choose orbit or, zoom or, slide or whatever. I'm going to choose orbit, and it helps you orbit around, right? Well, you want to be able to orbit to a certain point, but then you're probably going to have to also move. Like if you were to zoom out, then it helps you also a little bit in placing your object. So you don't necessarily have to move the actual logo. You can leave it where it is on the ground plane. And what is actually pretty helpful is, let's open this orthographic view up here. And one of the things that you can see right off the bat is that it's not exactly lined up with the red x-axis. And so if you wanted to be able to know for a fact that as you're moving that and you're using this red guideline as sort of the base of where it sits, then one of the things that you could do is you can go ahead and grab the object over here in the 3D panel, and then you could choose to move it backwards on the blue or Z axis so that it moves more towards being right there lined up with that red line. Okay, and then you can see that that's sort of sitting right there on top of that red line, and you could also then take it and move it down so that you can see that it's sitting like right there on the ground plane. And if you wanted to see, for instance, like a front view, you can see right there, if I blow this up, that it might be sitting like a tiny bit below the ground plane. Yeah, it might be just a hair below, but it's pretty close. And something else that I think I want to do, I want to go ahead and close the orthogonal view. I say orthogonal. A lot of people say orthographic. Orthogonal is an older term. Anyway, okay, so whenever I take this, I actually want to make this seem larger. And so what I would need to do then is, first of all, I want to take the current view and I want to use this slide tool so I can slide it. And then I think that also I can zoom in to make it bigger. And then I want to slide it over some more. And so that it actually feels like it's kind of sitting up inside of, so sort of sitting up inside of this space a little bit better. And the other thing, let's see, I'm going to grab my orbit and decide if I need to turn it this way or that way. I want to make sure though that I'm keeping it in alignment kind of with the perspective of the actual image, right? And so the other thing that I want to think about too is, as you're looking at this, one of the things you might notice is that this is all on one level going straight up, but we have sort of like this opportunity to make it look like it's nested inside of the grass, which is kind of cool, which we can't really do until later whenever we go and we add some adjustment layers with, like using clone tool samples and things like that. But one of the things that I want to take a look at is being able to align this in such a way that enough of it is sitting in the grass over here, and we might end up having to make some adjustments, like there's rock over here, so we might have to kind of make changes where the grass kind of comes up and dips up under here so that it looks like it's in 3 different levels, right? So I think that that's something that's also very beneficial. I can also try to turn this, and we can try to do something like that as well. And if I turn off, for instance, if I take the visibility off of here, you can see how it sits in that space in the larger picture as well. Let's see, turn that visibility back on, maybe turn that off and turn on the wide landscape. And when I do that, oops, didn't mean to do that. And when I do that, it kind of doesn't quite look like it's got the same perspective. So what I think I'd like to do is let's go back down and find our 3D object and let's rotate it. Let's do the orbit. I think that the perspective is more like that. And the other thing too that we can do, I think, is to move it a little bit like this, so that, let's see if that looks more, yeah, that looks like it's more in alignment, I think, with the actual perspective in terms of like where the vanishing point is going, like maybe perhaps there. And it looks like I'm getting dangerously close up here at the top to actually cutting that thing off. So I'm gonna, oops, wrong tool. Let's just undo my camera position, get it back where it was. And let's just slide this because I want to keep the same vanishing point. And let's just slide this, and I'm gonna turn on this square box to make sure I'm in position still. And I'm gonna slide it even further, I think, so that I can have it kind of cropping out of the rocks where it says outdoor adventures. And I think that if I click off somewhere, I can see what my potential is for being able to, you know, have some of the foliage kind of come up. And I think that that's kind of perfect. I think that I'm probably pretty happy with that placement. I think. So I went back so you don't have to watch me do exactly the things I'd been doing. And I found a place that I think is even better. And so if I show you this vanishing point, I think is better than the one that it was, I think, which was that one. And that doesn't look so bad until you kind of click off of it, and then you can start to see that it doesn't quite align. It's coming out in a different place. So this other one works much better, I think, with the vanishing point. And it still works within our boundaries. Now, the only thing about this is that it feels a little bit small for me now. And so I might want to be able to, let's just turn all of these different things on so I can see where it's going to get cropped. I might want to be able to increase the scale of that just a little bit. And I think that the thing that's really important is going to be this one, because this view really can't change all that much. The square technically can be a larger one if I wanted to do a much larger square. Same with the portrait's going to be fine for the height. That's not going to ever really be a problem. It's this one that's the problem. So if I come and take my my tool, my slide tool, I can slide it down a little bit. And then I think I want to zoom in just a little bit so that the scale is a little bit bigger. If I click off of it, I feel like that fits in the scene a little bit better. But looking back here, I kind of want this to align. Maybe it can look like it's coming out of that rock even. And so to do that, let me go back to my object, and I'll take my slide tool and I will slide it over perhaps to about there. And if I click off of it, I can see if that's going to integrate. And I think that maybe it actually was a little bit too much. I'm not crazy about that. So maybe I need to slide it differently. Maybe I need to slide it up. I can't really go up much further. What I can do instead is, I know that I'm going to go back into this file anyway, and I'm going to make adjustments where I'm going to, you know, add, you know, some foliage that crops up and kind of is covering the bottoms of these things so that it really clearly looks like it's sitting inside that clover, I can also do some of that same stuff over here with the rocks and things like that too, right? And so I don't have to worry too much about that. And I think I'm pretty happy, famous last words, right? I think I'm pretty happy that with this placement, I think that this works for me in all, you know, shapes and forms. I think this is the one that I would be the most concerned about. I can also, you know, don't forget, well, I don't have my crop tool with me right here. I have to go back into my other essential tools, but I can also do a larger square. So I think that I'm happy with this. And so I'm going to go ahead and do a save. You should be saving this pretty frequently. Once you get into your 3D stuff, it can get kind of hairy pretty fast. Now, in the next video, I'm going to show you how to create a light source, and that's going to also help illuminate this logo too.